in navigation. Kidd chased her under French colors, and having come up with her, he ordered her to hoist out her boat and send on board of him, which being done, he told Wright he was his prisoner, and informing himself concerning the said ship, he understood there were no Europeans on board, except 2 Dutch and 1 Frenchman, all the rest being Indians or Armenians, and that the Armenians were part owners of the cargo. Kidd gave the Armenians to understand that if they would offer anything that was worth his taking for their ransom, he would hearken to it, upon which they proposed to pay him 20,000 rupees, not quite £3,000 sterling. But Kidd judged this would be making a bad bargain, wherefore he rejected it, and setting the crew on shore at different places on the coast, he soon sold as much of the cargo as came to £10,000. With part of it he also trafficked, receiving in exchange provisions or such other goods as he wanted. By degrees he disposed of the whole cargo, and when the division was made, it came to about £200 a man. And having reserved 40 shares to himself, his divided amounted to about £8,000 sterling. The Indians along the coast came on board and trafficked with all freedom, and he punctually performed his bargains, till about the time he was ready to sail, and then, thinking he should have no further occasion for them, he made no scruple of taking their goods and setting them on shore, without any payment in money or goods, which they little expected, for as they had been used to deal with pirates, they always found them men of honor in the way of trade, a people enemies to deceit, and that scorned to rob but in their own way. Kidd put some of his men on board the Capt Merchant, and with this ship and his own sailed for Madagascar. As soon as he had arrived and cast anchor, there came on board of him a canoe, in which were several Englishmen, who had formerly been well acquainted with Kidd. As soon as they saw him, they saluted him, and told him they were informed he was come to take them and hang them, which would be a little unkind in such an old acquaintance. Kidd soon dissipated their doubts, by swearing he had no such design, and that he was now in every aspect their brother, and just as bad as they, and calling for a cup of bamboo, drank their captain's health. These men belonged to a pirate ship, called the Resolution, formerly the Mocha Merchant, whereof one Captain Culliford was commander, and which lay at anchor not far from them. Kidd went on board with them, promising them his friendship and assistance, and Culliford, in his turn, came on board of Kidd, and Kidd, to testify his sincerity in iniquity, finding Culliford in want of some necessaries, made him a present of an anchor and some guns, to fit him out for sea again. The Adventure galley was now so old and leaky that they were forced to keep 2 pumps continually going, wherefore Kidd shifted all the guns and tackle out of her into the Capt Merchant, intending her for his man of war, and as he had divided the money before, he now made a division of the remainder of the cargo, soon after which the greatest part of the company left him, some going on board Captain Culliford, and others absconding into the country, so that he had not above 40 men left. He put to sea and happened to touch at Amboyna, one of the Dutch Spice Islands, where he was told that the news of his actions had reached England, and that he was there declared a pirate. The truth of it is, his piracy so alarmed our merchants that some motions were made in Parliament to inquire into the commission that was given him and the persons who fitted him out. These proceedings seemed to lean a little hard upon Lord Bellamont, who thought himself so touched thereby that he published a justification of himself in a pamphlet, after Kidd's execution. In the meantime, was thought advisable, in order to stop the course of these piracies, to publish a proclamation, offering the king's free pardon to all such pirates as should voluntarily surrender themselves, whatever piracies they had been guilty of at any time before the last day of April, 1699, That is to say, for all piracies committed eastward of the Cape of Good Hope to the longitude and meridian of Socotora and Cape Cormoran, in which proclamation Avery and Kidd were accepted by name. When Kidd left Amboyna, he knew nothing of this proclamation, for certainly, had he had notice of his being accepted in it, he would not have been so infatuated as to run himself into the very jaws of danger, but relying upon his interest with the Lord Bellomont, and fancying that a French pass or two he found on board some of the ships he took would serve to countenance the matter, and that part of the booty he got would gain him new friends, I say all these things made him flatter himself that all would be hushed, and that justice would but wink at him. Wherefore he sailed directly for Boston laden with booty, with a crew of swaggering companions at his heels. But no sooner did he show himself in Boston than the alarm was given of his reappearance, and measures were taken to arrest him. The daring character which Kidd had acquired, however, and the desperate fellows who followed like bulldogs at his heels, caused a little delay in his arrest. He took advantage of this to bury the greater part of his immense treasure, which has never been found, and then carried a high head about the streets of Boston. He even attempted to defend himself when arrested, but was secured and thrown into prison. Such was the formidable character of this pirate and his crew, that a frigate was sent to convey them to England for trial. Accordingly, a sessions of Admiralty being held at the Old Bailey in May 1701, Captain Kidd, Nicholas Churchill, James Howe, Robert Lumley, William Jenkins, Gabriel Loff, Hugh Parrott, Richard Barleycorn, Abel Owens, and Darby Mullins were arraigned for piracy and robbery on the high seas, and all found guilty except 3. These were Robert Lumley, William Jenkins, and Richard Barleycorn, who, proving themselves to be apprentices to some of the officers of the ship, and producing their indentures in court, were acquitted. The 3 above mentioned, though they were proved to be concerned in taking and sharing the ship and goods mentioned in the indictment, yet, as the gentleman of the long robe rightly distinguished, there was a great difference between their circumstances and the rest. For there must go an intention of the mind and a freedom of the will to the committing an act of felony or piracy. A pirate is not to be understood to be under constraint, but a free agent. For in this case, the bare act will not make a man guilty, unless the will make it so. Now a servant, it is true, if he go voluntarily, and have his proportion, he must be accounted a pirate, for then he acts upon his own account, and not by compulsion. And these persons, according to the evidence, received their part, but whether they accounted to their masters for their shares afterwards is the matter in question. And what distinguishes them as free agents, or men that did go under the compulsion of their masters, which being left to the consideration of the jury, they found them not guilty. Kidd was tried upon an indictment of murder also, viz. For killing Moore the gunner, and found guilty of the same. Nicholas Churchill and James Howe pleaded the king's pardon, as having surrendered themselves within the time limited in the proclamation, and Colonel Bass, governor of West Jersey, to whom they surrendered, being in court, and called upon, proved the same. However, this plea was overruled by the court, because there being 4 commissioners named in the proclamation, viz. Captain Thomas Warren, Israel Hayes, Peter Delanoy, and Christopher Pollard, esquires, who were appointed commissioners and sent over on purpose to receive the submissions of such pirates as should surrender, it was adjudged no other person was qualified to receive their surrender, and that they could not be entitled to the benefit of the said proclamation because they had not in all circumstances complied with the conditions of it. Darby Mullins urged in his defense that he served under the king's commission, and therefore could not disobey his commander without incurring great punishments. that whenever a ship or ships went out upon any expedition under the king's